Fantasy team previews, and today we're looking at the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, in terms of fantasy value, they're not always the most valuable team because they don't have any of those superstar guys, the 1.4 plus point per game guys, but they do have a number of guys that are in that middle tier, that 4th to 10th round range that you can find. So we'll go over that as we move ahead with this video. They're 20th in terms of what their expected rank will be in 25-26. This is basically their top 12 their top 12 forwards and their top 6D combined, all of their combined ratings. So they did technically improve. And when we look at the additions and subtractions, you've got Nick Ehlers and Keandre Miller coming in. These two guys were hurt at the end of the season. That's why they're quote unquote additions when I compare them to the last game of the regular season. But on the way out is Dmitry Orlov, Brent Burns, Jack Roslovic could potentially be back. He's still out there in free agency. Scott Morrow, Ty Smith, Riley Stillman. So some significant changes. Brent Burns has been on that blue line for a couple years. He's gone. Orlov has been on that blue line for a couple years. He's gone. Their blue line kind of turns over a little bit. And then they do have Nick Ehlers coming into the top 6 more than likely and getting some power play time. So in terms of fantasy ownable forwards, Seth Jarvis is definitely one of their best, mainly because of his category coverage if you're in a Cats league. 67 points, 32 goals. Those are excellent. Shot volume is great, 95th percentile, 2.79 shots per game. And he does hit 1.27 hits per game, plus 19 power play points last year. So he's coming into his own. He's entering that prime age range where you're going to want to own him. He's hitting his career stride in terms of what his ceiling is going to be, and he is relatively complete. He should be a 4th to 8th round range kind of pick, depending on how your draft shakes out, but he's that fantasy valuable in terms of category leagues especially. Now, Sebastian Aho is basically a set your watch point per game guy, slightly under that last year, but almost always putting up exactly 82 points in 82 games, which means he's very healthy, but he's also very productive. 93rd percentile or better in all of those offensive metrics, including 2.62 shots per game. 23 power play points is really good, and you know what you're going to get out of him. He's set your watch and forget it. Svechnikov, we've kind of been waiting on for several years, and he's just never hit it. I've never picked him up in fantasy because he just isn't even a point per game guy yet. The hits are always there, 2.06 hits per game, 2.5 shots per game, plus the 18 power play points does make him fantasy relevant for sure. Even in points leagues where you're getting a point per hit or something like that, shot volume is going to help there. I just want to see him be better than a 0.67 point per game guy. Maybe this is the year. Maybe he's got enough around him. Ehlers setting him up. Speaking of Ehlers, he comes over. He's been right around a point per game guy. He's had trouble playing a full 82 game season, 69 games last year, 63 points, 24 goals, 22 power play points. He should help their power play. 2.5 shots per game, and he's been more than that in the past. He's been upwards above 3. So he is a shooter. He likes to skate with the puck. He likes to control things on the power play. A lot of the offense will probably run through him, at least off the rush. So you can definitely count on him probably being around this range, this 0.91. You just have to hope that he's healthy. Logan Stankoven comes over last year, a little bit of an adjustment period, but he looked really good in the playoffs, 38 points in 78 games. Shot volume is excellent, 2.49 for a younger player. He could take a step this year and come into his own. It's just going to depend on deployment. He has to be in that top 6 and get a little bit of power play time to be a little bit more fantasy relevant. Taylor Hall had a decent year last year. 42 points and 77 is not bad for a player who's kind of on the downward swing. I wouldn't necessarily roster him in fantasy, nor would I roster most of these other guys, but they did give a contract extension to Jackson Blake, betting on him basically in the offseason to complete his ascendancy to this power play 1 spot that he's been given every now and then. 7 power play points in 80 games is not crazy, but some of those were big ones. And if he's going to continue to improve like this, that should be value, but I don't necessarily see him as a fantasy guy this year. Shane Gostisbehere is their power play quarterback on D. 45 points and 70 is okay. It's not great, but it's not bad either. 98th percentile in power play points, 27 on the year. That's what you're owning him for. And the assists are there, 0.54 assists per game, 93rd percentile, 38 assists last year. So you're getting him for power play assists. I wish the blocks were there and the shot volume was higher. If that were the case, he would be a much more valuable fantasy defenseman. I don't really see much competition from Keandre Miller pushing him for PP1. Maybe Keandre Miller gets PP2 time. And speaking of Miller, here's what his profile looks like. Nothing crazy there at all. 1.5 blocks per game, 1.5 hits per game, 1.5 shots per game. Kind of mid across the board. I don't see him as a fantasy ownable player this year. And as much as we love Jacob Slavin in real hockey, in fantasy hockey, he's not really that great for anything. No hits at all. Blocks are pretty good. Everything else is pretty much unownable. Now, when we take a look at the line combinations, this is just a projection. A lot of this will probably change. Ehlers, Aho, Svechnikov, Hall, Jarvis, Blake. I could see Jarvis moving to the wing. I could see Kotkaniemi moving up here. I could see Stahl occasionally moving up here. There's Stankoven on this third line. That could change. So a lot of moving parts. I would say that there's enough here to create 3 constantly rotating offensive lines that are productive, and there's somebody on each of these lines that could be fantasy relevant. But as it shakes out now, I think Stankoven's value depends on line assignment. I think Kotkaniemi would depend on line assignment. Seth Jarvis doesn't. Sebastian Aho doesn't. Ehlers doesn't depend on line assignment. You know what you're going to get out of Svech. Underperforming offensive numbers, but good hits and everything else. So there's a lot going on here in terms of their top 9. This should be a lot to monitor in the preseason, because if you start to see a guy like Stankoven playing on this top line or something like that, that could increase his value. In terms of D pairings, Keandre Miller, Jacob Slavin, Nikishin coming over. I don't have a file on him, but he looked really good in the playoffs. You could think of him as a potential breakout. Maybe he pushes Shane Gostisbehere for some power play time. I think they would start him at PP2 and see how it goes. But he could be a late round flyer that you pick up in your draft. They also have Chatfield, Gostisbehere, and Walker. We went over Gostisbehere. And basically, other than maybe Nikishin and Gostisbehere, there's not a whole lot of fantasy value on their back end. That's going to do it for this video. Stay tuned for the next episode in team previews. And if you haven't already, go take a look at the channel. I've done a full breakdown of points league strategy and category league strategy. Those are up in a playlist on the channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.